and imploding on itself. Something shifting inside people. You could go into it on a Vedic level and all this kind of thing. I've got books about it coming on my ears, right? But on a very basic level, something's changing because people feel it. It's like, how are you doing? Oh, really well, thank you, morning. Now, you could almost stop them and go, you're lying, ain't you? Right?
I'm feeling an energetic shift across the solar system. All planets, man. How are you doing?
It's like, what you talking about? You can be honest with us. It's like, well, actually, I feel really weird. Most of them would either fall into your arms and burst out crying because I get it, or they'd fall on the floor in a fetal position and scream, right? Just crying, I can't take it. People are so brave. And that secret in most people that they're actually quite depressed and terrified and just can't almost stand it any longer. That secret in people, David, is one of the greatest problems in the world.
Are sanctions and a weaponized U.S. dollar prompting central banks to diversify with gold? As the U.S. imposed the harshest sanctions in history against Putin, the central banks of Saudi Arabia and China have taken notice. Saudi Arabia is considering accepting Chinese yuan for oil sales to China. Could this spell the end of the U.S. dollar as a global reserve currency? Because since March 2020, gold's up 30%, silver's doubled. Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo all forecast gold to surpass $2,000 an ounce. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Call 1-800-356-4470 for a free investor guide today. And with the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer from 2016 to present, click on the link in the description box below for more information. And now on with the video. And good afternoon, everyone. You'll remember this fine gentleman here, Jason Liosatos. We had done a couple talks. It's been a couple years, when we met in the UK, and he was so kind to take me around, and we got to see some amazing things down in Totnes, and it was such a fun experience for me. I'll always remember that as being one of the greatest experiences. That's where I really learned about finding spring water within your local community, because I was with Wild John, and we went around and found those springs, and I just had never, as an American guy, finding a spring, most of them have been cut off in our country. And unless you're back out in the countryside or on somebody's land, to get fresh spring water that you can get literally out of the bottle for no cost is something of the past in our country. But I was so relieved and refreshed to find that come back on my radar screen again. And sure enough, as soon as I got back in the States, I started finding springs around to, what was the name of that? Findaspring.com. And, we talked about the food shortages then, maybe how humanity was going to drift and how they would respond to all these things from the grand solar minimum. And repeating chapters in history, repeating chapters in civilization, we find ourselves here again. Jason, appreciate you chatting with me tonight. And just when we got online here, we were starting to talk. So I'm going to let you run with that thought.
Well, if you let me run, I'll run. You'll have to pull me back.
The marathon time. Here we go.
Here we go. Go. Just on the quick thing of spring water, David, before we carry on. I used to live on a narrowboat, a 55-foot narrowboat near Bath in England. And we had to find springs. Wherever I stopped, I found springs. And you normally found they were near a village and they were abandoned, but there was often a big bush around them or a huge crop, because that's what, and you could hear it, you could go. I used to get bottled water from one spring, and you used to have to dig a slight hole and then scoop it out. And there was tiny little shrimps in there. I remember going to my father's house, and we always used to take our own water. And he used to obviously think we're completely mad, And he's left his spacesuit now, so he's been relieved of my madness. But I remember showing him, look, Dad, there's shrimps in the bottom of this bottle. He said, "Are you completely crazy, mate?" I said, "Well, it shows it's fresh. I mean, there's no shrimps in your tap, because they'd all be dead." So that's what it was. And we used to take the shrimps back and put them back in the spring. But no, David, where do you want me to start? I'll just rock and roll. I can scream about humanity's predicament all night. Where do you want me to begin?
How things are not functional and how supply chain systems were going to break down and how currency was going to change and how there'd be a gigantic shift in civilization based on past patterns and cycles, and calling it out before the shift occurred, you would seem almost nutty, as you call it, a mad hatter over there. And then all of a sudden we sit here today, just a couple of years later, and everything that we were talking about just mere years ago, not decades or anything, years, is suddenly in front of us, playing out in real time of everything that we talked about. And, where does it go from here? And how are the people that are not prepared going to deal with this? And how are they going to, it's more about how are they going to, wrap their heads literally around that the things that had been told before maybe were not so truthful. And then who are they going to start to believe now as we move forward in terms of information flow?
It's a great time, David. There's my book. I wrote that 12 years ago. And you know something?
I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, David, that was too far before its time. I'll tell you it was. And now it's more poignant now with what we're living through. I've got millions of analogies. My favorite one is the baby chick analogy. You probably heard me speak about it before. When a chick pecks its way out of an egg, it doesn't just think, I'll peck my way out. The poisons inside the egg build to the point which triggers the baby bird to peck. That's where we are now as humanity. The poisons in the earth and by psychopaths are trying to control it are building. They're strangling us. They're putting us on red alert. We all feel something's wrong. And that's triggering us to peck. To peck what? To peck a new world into being and peck our way out of this one and have the courage and the responsibility and the wherewithal and the consciousness to build another one. Now, I would say that we're in a state of recovery because most people are in shock from just living in a system, David, that is based on fear and short-term greed and profit, rather than human freedom and happiness and joy and abundance. You've been talked about this for years. It's kept purposely skimpish with what you buy, and money you don't get enough, only just get enough to buy food. We're at dimension end. And I'm delighted. I've been talking about this for 30-something years, David, and I've got books here that I can hardly understand myself by great mentors and teachers that have helped me along the way.
Oh, can you put that title back up again? Can I take a look at that?
Sure. Yeah, man. I mean, this guy's called Charles Muses. His other name was Muses. He went into many pen names. Look up The Lion Path. It's still online, actually, thelionpath.org, I think it is. And you'll see Charles Muses. There's another one of his books. I don't put anyone on a pedestal because often they can disappoint you. Don't ever do that with gurus, everybody. I've been caught out like that. Destiny and Control in Human Systems, Studies in the Interactive Connectedness of Time. All these books that he wrote, The Eternal Door, The Grail Most Ancient, Access. And if you go on the Line Path, you'll see that there's graphs and tables, and we're mapped onto a trajectory, David. And if the old teachings that were purposely squashed and libraries burnt or wherever were showing us where we were going, and we have come to a dimension end now. There's no doubt about it. And I want to say this to people. If you wake up in the morning, which most people do, and you really feel it, you say, feel what, Jason? Feel it, that thing, that something shifted within you. You'll feel it. And you'll have it all day until you go to sleep. Most people are feeling that now. And it's a recovery. It's a remembering. It's a quickening. It really, you could say it's the real religion. The word religare is the word where the word religion comes from. And that means religamenting, actually remembering. We have reached a point in human history. In one way, we've got the system to thank because by its strangling hands, it's forced our awakening. It's a double-edged sword. It's trying to strangle us and completely enslave us digitally, and it's also waking us up at the same time. It's a fascinating time, and what I believe we're being asked to do is leap dimensions and move to another level of consciousness and reality. And there is no doubt about it that the people who are trying to run this system, David, like they have done for thousands of years, the one with the more power, the control people, control the flow of food and energy, they have got their boot on the new humanity and a new world that wants to take place. I mean, I always give the analogy of a revolving door. There's times when that opening comes, and that is on 100-year cycle and 200-year cycles, thousands of cycles, and that you get a chance to move through to another dimension or another way of living and being on a planet, and it's always suppressed. And now it's a very serious time. this system turns us on ourselves. It shuts off our creativity. It shuts off our spirituality, as you know, and it chokes us off with fear.
So what about the average person? Like you said, they wake up, they feel it. They can't put a finger on it. They don't understand what that feeling is. It is a quickening. The vibrational frequency is changing around them from the sun to our Earth. The magnetosphere of our planet's changing. Magnetic field on our planet's changing. Obviously, they're going to perceive reality in a different way because, well, if their planet's magnetic field change and your brains are magnetic fields as well, they're going to equalize. So there's going to be some changes. So how would just a person who's never been into even yoga, spirituality, doesn't understand meditation, doesn't understand changes, doesn't even understand frequency or energies or cycles or anything, literally coming at it from somebody who literally knows nothing about the spiritual realms or even anything other than hard physical stuff, suddenly feels this and then decides to wake up. Not for it, not they want to, they're forced to, because the energies sweeping through our solar system and galaxy here are changing. So does the average that type of person deal with all this, or put it into a construct that doesn't make them go insane as they try to deal with all these changes that are so unthinkable for them? That's never even been on the radar screen of this type of change or thought, that suddenly there's a tidal wave of all this newness coming into them that they can't explain.
I would say that it's not for everyone to really, I used to go around shaking people 30 years ago, David, and you can do people more damage by shaking them awake than leaving them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like they're not ready for a lot of these things that are coming.
I see people that used to come in my studio years ago really different now. They come in and there's a difference with them, David. And when they come in, some of them enthuse about what they found out, and it's like, my God, I didn't realize it was like this, and something's shifting, something's changing. They can feel it within themselves, and sometimes it's not something you can put into words. So what do we do? This is the question. What do we do? And I believe we're creating new systems now. I mean, I'm speaking to people all over the place. They're ready for something new to come in. And I think it's when a building's collapsing, you've got a short time to get out before it collapses on you, and you've got no food, and you've got no energy, and you've got no water, and you're rendered virtually helpless. I mean, I know it sounds negative, but it's more than getting storable foods, and it's more than getting water. That's great, but we've got to actually create a new way of being on this planet, and everything's been done to stop it in the past. But it's time now. It really is. It's time. But we've got scattered energy, David. Most people are still in fear, trying to just find the crumbs are on the table.
I just follow the cycles. If you follow the cycles, you know where we're going right again. It's a cycle, it repeats. So there's a certain amount of time between either major volcanic eruptions that diminish food supply, or when the end of a life cycle of either an empire or a currency occurs. And then when all these things start to overlap in the exact same times, and then you get solar cycles on the 400-year. And when you start to get 5, 6, 8 cycles all overlapping within, a 2 to 5 year period of onset again here, something significant's happening.
And for me, it's still very sticky and slow, David, as I know it is for a lot of people. It's still going too slow. It's like, I wish we could just rise above this whole thing, and a new creative system would come into play immediately. But unfortunately, it seems like it is accelerating very fast in the scheme of things, but it is still very sticky and slow and painful, which gives these people a chance to bring in that digital reset and actually choke people off, So a lot of people are getting into trouble not paying their bills. A lot of people seem to have success at it, the common law stuff and all this kind of thing that people are talking about. I have people on my show about it regularly. We are in a situation, we want it to go faster. The system's crumbling, it is, because it has to crumble. I mean, let's be honest, we've gone mad as a species. I'm sorry to tell everybody, myself included. We are at that point. We've gone mad as a species, and we need to recover. It's a recovery. So there's great reflection and a great consciousness shift. There's no doubt about that. It's too slow for me, but maybe if it happened too fast, everyone just wouldn't go to work and the system would collapse too quick. Maybe there's got to be a transition. That's what I think. There's got to be this transitional period because people...
The transition's coming in the terms of famine and food shortages right now. This transition...
Right.
To move in slowly, work through the molasses into another system. It's not happening. We're going to get poured hot water straight into that molasses. It's going to turn into a liquid, and we're coming into famine and food shortages. So that transition, like everything you're talking about, how are people going to deal with the famine and the food shortages? Schooling's one thing. paying your electric bills another, but putting food on the plate, literally, so you don't starve to death in your house with your family and start eating your neighbors. This is what we're going to be facing in 6 months or less here.
And that's why I'm delighted.
How does that all factor into everything?
There's a bloody tsunami coming out there. It's coming quick, and you better be ready, because if you're not ready, it'll be too late. What are you going to do? Start growing seeds, when you've got no food? So I admire you. I admire Mike Adams. Fantastic work you've done over these years to try and prepare people and get them ready for what's coming. And maybe people have got to be starving to death, before they actually say, we can't rely on this system anymore. That's the saddest thing for me, David. And I know I keep going back to basics with all this very ground level basics. This is what people have got to see. And okay, then what do we do? Well, okay, we've got to start doing something else, and it's a big behemoth. It's got a big trajectory, David. It's got a lot of weight. It's like trying to, shift a big tanker. It takes 2 miles to turn it, and by that time you've hit the iceberg. So maybe it's got to hit the icebergs. I hope not. But people like you, and then you can say, "I told you." I told you. I'm saying it to people now in a nice way. I told you. It's coming. It's sure. Here we are. Okay, now what? So
yeah. How is it gonna? How is your community set to work together as a community, or what kind of food price rises are you seeing in town there, or shortages that you might be seeing where things are disappearing from the shelves?
Yeah, well, here where I live is one of the reasons I came to live here, because there's.
Do you think they'll organize as a community? I found that town just incredible, just friendly people there that I thought could work together. That'd be a survival spot.
But more than that, there's a farm here called Riverford Farm, and they grow food and send it in boxes all around the country, David, right? And it might sound a bit radical, but I knew this was coming 12 years ago, 30 years ago. But I thought, let's go and live where people are more, I don't like the word awake, but more conscious of things. There's a lot of clashes in town. There's still a lot of people in the spiritual community here who are saying, oh, everything's going to happen perfectly. You don't have to worry about a thing. What you resist persists. Don't look at anything negative. It's like, look, what you don't resist persists, and get off your meditation pillows and start facing reality and doing something before it's too late. But that's one of the reasons I came here. There's a lot of different sort of factions here, but ultimately they've all got the same sort of real feeling that they'd like to be free. There's Transition Town, which is not transitioning into very much. There's a river at the bottom of this road, David, a big tidal river that comes in and out from Dartmouth. They've put an Archimedes screw down there, so they get in power from it. But if it was a real transition town, what I would do is I would power this whole town with the river, and with I don't know about solar, what's the best thing to do, and make an example of it. But that's why I'm here, David, because I know if it really does hit the fan, which is coming, these people will come together very quickly. And it happened in lockdown. I had people coming here, I had meetings upstairs in my house, 16, 17 people looking for solutions, thinking of doing something quick, and who were not adhering to the rules that they were told that they had to do. And it was a call to action. So sometimes when things get really bad, people come together. It's better late than never. But that's why I'm here, David. There's a big farm here growing stuff. I know a farmer down the road. He's planting stuff. There's a lot of pockets. Wild John yourself. And John, Wild John's great. I saw him the other day, and he had a big leather coat on, And he said, well, this is what I'm making now, And it's all stitched by hand by himself, David. John, I know you'll probably be watching this. Bless you, mate. You're amazing. Wild John, they call him Wild John. And he's an amazing guy. He's making his own stuff. He makes his own shelters. He can find, animals with bows and arrows, catapults, And people used to laugh at people like that years ago. But if things go down, I'm going to go and find Wild John. There's another guy, Nigel, comes into my shop. He does talks and walks, David. He broadcasts wild seeds. He brings food into my gallery and says, try this, eat this. And like little sweet olives and things. He said, oh, there's plenty of food everywhere. Don't worry. He said, I'm planting everywhere. So there's people like this here who will come together and say, right, quick, Louise, my partner, has been saying to me for ages, we must buy a plastic material and have hoops and polytunnel ready stuff. And just, it's something everyone should have, and seeds and everything, But it's often the case, David, if you don't change quick enough, you change too late, More and more people, David, my gallery, as you've seen, is like a meeting place, a hub. It's a brilliant yardstick for what's going on. We've got one foot on a dying system that's dying, and we don't want to be pulled down with it. We've got to have another foot on another lifeboat with stuff growing and that. and people talking about a new way of living and being and a new birth on this planet. It's already being born, but I'm not one of these people say, "Oh, it's already done. It's fine. Good's always going to overcome evil." No, it's not that simple. But I do feel that it's already begun the birth, and sometimes you can't see something manifesting in the early stages. You have to watch what's going on, and you've got to see the timing, and you've got to act. But it's not made easy, David. It's not made easy. But here we are talking about it. That's
Let me stop for a second here then. One foot on land, 1 foot on the lifeboat. You got 6 months to transition. And, if you got your community down there ready, I mean, how far away is it for a tank of gas to get down to your place? Can somebody on a 1 tank of gas from London drive down there? And how are you able to protect your communities from the marauders? Because, because if you're looking at, let's just say, we'll call it England itself. But I mean, the amount of people living there is like one state in America, I mean, the size of the country itself with the population is far, far, far greater than what we have in the States here. I mean, you can run out here into East Tennessee and, you get way out of farming country and, there's only 2 roads in coming way out here. I mean, you're obviously going to know people coming in and before they get off the highways and make the 2nd and 3rd and the 4th and 5th and the 6th and the 7th turn to even get down to the back roads here. You've dribbled away from 400,000 people up in one of the cities further up and, 5,000 people down over here. And this town where I'm living only has 900 people. And then the next biggest town is 300,000 people. That's an hour and a half, hour and almost 2 hour drive away. And then there's just national park behind for hundreds and hundreds of miles of just no roads or anything. I mean, out here, we're relatively remote and it's difficult to get to. And nobody's going to be driving from Atlanta to get up here. Nobody's driving from Washington, D.C. to get down here. They would run out of gas at that point or, to get blockaded on the roads before they could ever get here. But where you're at, it is so much more densely packed. Like, how are you going to deal with that?
But I'll say this, Dave, I've got provisions. I've got big sacks of wheat. I got this, but it's all going out of date now, People say, oh, we should have resolved. I've done this a few times, but this time is different, right? This time is different. What will happen here? Okay, if it goes down here, people will be thrown out of their houses. They won't be able to pay their rent, blah, blah, blah. The community is huge here. There is water here. There's a lot of water to drink here.
No, you stay in your house. There's no, you might get a letter that says, come and get out of the house. But at that point, here you'd have to have a sheriff to come and evict you. But I really highly doubt that even the sheriffs would take it on, come in and start taking people out of their homes, because all it would be is a bank in some faraway capital city that has a note on your property that would never even visit your place. So the local people here would be like, no, you're not going to take their house. And this kind of, downturning economy, and you want to take their house? No. So my advice would be just stay in your home. But I mean, the police would have to physically drag you out of there.
Yeah.
Literally.
I'm not joking, David. I know so many people here now. There's people who've got a little bit of land. I was up at someone's land the other day. I go up to another piece of land and they're starting to grow stuff. And they weren't before, okay? So they've got land and they're starting to get people to come in every Monday now and help them to start growing stuff to be food secure with food, okay? They got their own sheep, quite a couple of them. They got their own, pigs and stuff like that. They've got frozen.
Oh, well, wait, 500 hungry people coming from London are going to want that same one sheep.
Oh, yeah.
Now you got 6 months or under to get your community together. So like transition this, you got the idea, you got people who want to form a community, but how do you get the expediency into there? Because I am unequivocally saying without a doubt up to thank you for the compliment and the enormous amount of research I've done to this point. You got 6 months. That's it. Maybe even not 6. The awareness of the global fertilizer shortages and the crop declines because of not only fertilizer, but herbicides. Now we got Kazakhstan cutting off the grain shipments. Nothing's coming out of Ukraine. The whole Black Sea region is going to be blocked up. Nothing's coming out of Russia. And, if it is, it's going to the friendly countries, not the Western countries, which we just got our fertilizer clipped here in the United States as well, which means we're going to go into even steeper declines here for crop production. Like the world's going to start to do a little bit of simple math here coming around June or July, and they're going to get it that we're going to be at least down 20% globally. And then once we get with the ramifications of the stoppage of exports and rationing, et cetera, at the point of coming into harvest season, Northern Hemisphere, September, game over. October, you're going to understand that what you're buying now is going to increase 3-fold, 5-fold in price. I mean, they were supposed to increase food prices in Germany by like 50%. Just as today, I got a report here coming. There's a fivefold. You know how much it's 2.5 gallons of canola oil. It was in a big old plastic jug. 2.5 gallons of canola oil, 38.5 euros. Put that into perspective. Is it 38? Let's even change it into dollars or pounds. 38.5 pounds, $38.5 for a 2.5 gallon jug of cooking oil. That's not even the meat or anything that would be expensive. That's the cooking oil.
It's funny, David, just to stop you, don't hold that thought, because I'm thinking of the guy, sort of guy I know here. Well, a lot of them run their old vans on cooking oil, yeah. So I'm thinking, how does that equate to? And when he comes up the street, right, I say, hey, and as he goes past, it smells like a fish and chip shop out the back, you know.
Yeah, biodiesel. Yeah, I can imagine biodiesel at $16 a gallon. That's pretty much what that bottle of oil is.
One guy, you was sticking it straight in out of the cooker. He was buying it in Lidl's in the cheap place, you know, and he was bunging it. He was bunging it straight in, you know. People are going to go into terrible shock, you know, and they don't know how to look after themselves. And you know, like I say, I'll be finding Nigel. Nigel will be watching this. Hey, Nigel, listen, I'll be finding you, brother. You know, I'll be coming to find you, and he'll say, just relax. I said to him once, I said, look, you know, with people with the cars and diesels, he said, you've got your feet, your legs. Right? So you heard him say that, right? And he's got, I hope I swear he won't mind me saying he's always got mud on him and muddy wellies and stuff, because he's always on the land. And you can tell because he's really grounded, right? He's really earthed, right? And he's always planting food. Like I say, he brings me stuff in. And it's, oh, well, don't worry. I mean, you know, it's like, we got this. He's got, I don't know, hundreds of jars of pickles, and he knows how to pickle. He just told my wife how to get a pressure cooker. I'm going to be doing programs on this sooner rather than later. Get an old pressure cooker and then put jars in that have got that poppy top, you know. And then he said it pops it forward and it seals it, you know. And he was saying how long the stuff lasts in there. And he was showing us how to do that with all sorts of different things. It's fascinating. But what a tragedy, though, that the system may have to collapse for us to all learn how to look after ourselves again. So something's happening within people, David. It's more than just the system collapsing and imploding on itself. Something's shifting inside people. You could go into it on a you know, Vedic level and all this kind of thing. I've got books about it coming on my ears, right? But on a very basic level, something's changing because people feel it. It's like, how are you doing? Oh, really well, thank you, morning. Now, you could almost stop them and go, you're lying, ain't you? Right?
I'm feeling an energetic shift across the solar system. All planets, man. How are you doing?
It's like, what you talking about? You can be honest with us. It's like, well, actually, I feel really weird. Most of them would either fall into your arms and burst out crying because I get it, or they'd fall on the floor in a fetal position and scream, right? Just crying, I can't take it. People are so brave. And that secret in most people, that they're actually quite depressed and terrified and just can't almost stand it any longer. That secret in people, David, is one of the greatest problems in the world. Actually, do you know something? It's not serving us anymore. It's time to see reality and feel those feelings inside us that we can't stand it anymore. Morning, how are you? Like, you know, how are you? And I look at people across the road and so I was like, all right, John, you go, you know.
Tired of being on the centralized system.
Man, that's where we are.
Break the dependency on that one.
You gotta break them. And that's where we are. You know, this is another thing. And what there was with this gentleman, he was a great mathematician, and he was a shaman, he was an astrologer, he was many things. But one of the things he used to use was frequencies as well to stimulate consciousness. And again, I would prompt everybody to go and find his work, The Lion Path. I'm not putting him on a pedestal. I'm not, you know. But he was an Egyptologist and all sorts of things.
Yeah, can I throw a woo-woo thought? Well, not really a woo-woo thought, but let me ask you quickly then. Do you think we could use frequencies to make plants grow faster, to get higher yields then? And maybe that's something we're missing in the whole modern agribiz, where we could sustain ourselves by getting a 50x yield on that by using frequencies?
Yeah, well, what this guy was doing, he was one of the early people who used actually dials and electrodes, yeah. And what his astonishment was that one of the plants, they were going to do an experiment, and it's documented. He was going to burn it with a match and see what happened with the frequency. And as he left the room, the frequencies went wild. In other words, the plant knew he was going to burn it before he went and got the matches, So people don't realize everything's alive when it's got consciousness. It's incredible. Everything, everything's connected. Everything. It's the one thing you can say. Everything's connected across time and galaxies. Everything is connected. And this is what this chap used to talk a lot about. And also there's other people like the great woman. Remember Doris Lessing, anybody? If I got a minute, can I just read this one thing there?
Yeah, absolutely.
And let me just read you this bit here. It's very. The Earth is due to receive a new pattern of impulses. The first class emergency conference was convened on Venus and had delegates from as far away as Pluto. But the element in which the process exists is time. Time is the whole point. Timing, the surfer on the wave. Now I say to that people about now the timing now, right? The life of humanity is governed elsewhere was set by Mercury and Venus, Mars and Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus and Pluto. This particular configuration of planets will be really so powerful, the equivalent of several centuries of evolution all in a decade or so. That's happening now, right now, yeah? The quickening, you can feel it. But I expect there'll be the usual few who will listen. It's enough. Well, whatever the stark and dire nature of the shortly to be expected celestial configurations, and whatever man's backslidings, there is confidence in the outcome. And if worse comes to the worst, the celestial gardener will simply have to lop off that branch and graft another. That's always been so, of course, but this time it will be all that and more. It will be an assistant of the Earth's people through the coming planetary emergency. Now that sounds like just a story, but it's not. That's where we are now. It's glaringly obvious now, David. They're showing you where they're going with it. It's like, do you want to go? And there's some people say that they've got to do that to let themselves off the karmic precipitation process or something.
That's right.
They got to tell you what they're doing before they do it. So if you don't resist, they can say, well, we gave you a chance, But options are sometimes limited. But I'm delighted to be here now and to know people like yourself, be on the planet with people like you now, David, and all these other people who've been talking, Kelly Cassidy, Mike Adams, all these people, the Fruitcake, not you so much. You've been one of the very sensible ones that I got to be careful.
The cherry Fruitcake.
But, I've been a bit of a ranting raver. You've always been very focused and sensible with what you're talking. I've been at your talks in Glastonbury and also in the town hall here. I filmed one of them, didn't I?
Well, that was when, what were the lunatics up there? Extinction Rebellion interrupted me and myself and Piers Corbin when we were talking up there.
I forgot about that. In Glastonbury, wasn't it? And I think didn't Wild John do a few butterfly karate kicks and
we didn't. No, we didn't. There was no physical altercation on the hallway, but they kind of came in, and me and John and a few other guys just kind of formed a line and pushed them right back out. Then they started screaming in the hallway. And one thing I found so interesting about that was, they were there to protest the whole, because we were talking about the sun cycles and Piers, being a PhD and literally a rocket scientist and understanding the cycles of how things work. But they wouldn't even look me in the eye and talk to me. I was one of the speakers that night, and they were there to disrupt all the speakers that were there, but they wouldn't even look at me eye to eye and then have a debate in the hallway. They were yelling at John, and they were yelling at the other John, Wild John, and that sort of thing. And they were yelling at everybody, and I think they made it a point never even to look at me and make eye contact with me during that whole article. That thing went off for 5 minutes at the point where some people come on and go, hey man, you guys need to take it outside or be quiet because you interrupted Piers in there speaking. And Piers Corbin, he's such a brilliant mind on this planet. And that Extinction Rebellion thing up there in Town Hall. And you know what? That was what was that? That was on Halloween Eve or something, where it was such the trippy time in Glastonbury anywhere, Halloween in Glastonbury. But then speaking at that time and being interrupted by Extinction Rebellion when we're doing our presentations. That's
all Hallows Eve when the veil between this world and other worlds of
I actually saw that veil disappear up there, and they were saying, hey, you guys want to go out tonight out to because Sandy owned that pub down there in the middle of town. And I was like, no way am I going out tonight. I'm staying in safety in her house.
But no, Piers Corbin, I got to say a shout out to Piers Corbin, Sandy Adams, all these people. And
Mark Meadows too, he was a good one. We sat around for hours drinking honey mead, drinking mead. I can't find the same mead here in the States. But anyway, that mead that we found up there that they suggested, that was amazing. We sat around drinking honey mead. I forget what time it was, around that big old table, a 500-year-old oak table in the middle of her house. And it was just the most, I was like living in a piece of history. I felt like I got dropped back. That was the incredible time there too.
Oh, God.
It was just great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing about time being kind of a commodity here, and things that were made you have such great memories that can bring back laughs and smiles and, you know, just positive vibrational feeling of, you know, they had the most incredible travel experiences in the UK and people I met, and, you know, bringing those back, even if you can tuck into your memory to bring you back a positive memory, even going through some of these changes and transition times that we're about to face with the famines and the food shortages and hyperinflation and these things that we have never even thought that we could experience, that Great Depression times in the United States, World War II across Europe. I mean, that full level of disruption of a society and countries is at our doorstep within 6 months.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that you had a chance to listen to our conversation. We're going to come back for part 2 because we want to talk about artificial intelligence, as Jason was talking about here. You know, just the mere thought of either thinking or typing something will trigger that AI to then do something, repercussion in your life that will, you know, force you not to do that again, whether it's a shock physically or whether it's a shock to your bank account or whether it's a loss of your job or revocation of your driver's license for a certain number of days, or, you know, forcing you to eat lower quality foods, whatever that this control system morphs into. But that's going to be part 2 of our talk. But for right now, you know, Jason, tell people where they can find you, you know, more about the book, you know, your website, jasonliosatos.com. I mean, how can people get a hold of you if they really wanted to speak to you more? Because you brought up a bevy of important points today.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it. And thanks again for your work. Well, you can find me on my main website is jasonliosatos.com. You can read it off my book there. My funny name is from Kefalonia in Greece, a little island near Corfu. That's my book. And if you go to jasonliosatos.com, I've got a lot of my recent talks with great people on there, a plethora of great people on there from goodness knows all sorts of people. And I appreciate their support. That's .com. I'm banned off YouTube, as you know. I got my final ban when I went filming David Icke, and I was interviewing people around London in the great freedom marches in lockdown, which was an honor to go there. It was very stressful, you know. Surrounded by police and that. I was on Glastonbury tour with Piers Corbyn, right? And the police came over the hill. I'll never forget that. It's on one of my, you can find it. I
saw that video of him getting arrested there.
And they came over the hill, like coming over the hill, and Piers was there with his megaphone. And I said, you could hear me say, I said, Piers, here's the cops. And he went, hello, hello, hello. And I thought, oh God. And they came and said, Mr. Corbyn, we've told you, we've warned you. And he said, I'll never forget it. He said, oh, I'm nearly finished. Hold on. As I was saying, and they said, no, Mr. Corbyn, we're going to arrest you. And I said to this chap there, I said, how come he's so calm? He doesn't look frightened. He said, well, he's been arrested 45 times already. He's used to it, you know. But what a brave man. I'm not joking. So Piers is on my show regularly. And so you can find my shows there. I'm banned off YouTube. You can find me on BitTube, Brand YouTube, Brighteon with Mike Adams, I've got Odyssey, Rumble, God knows, all those ones. And also I'm an artist, as you know. You can find my artwork and my paintings, which I sell on jasonliosatos.art.com. That's my other thing. And I'm too many people. I'm trying to cram 10 lives into one, David. So I do talks as well. I've just done a talk in Birmingham there, and you can find my book and all my rantings and my work there, you know. So that's what we do. And my wife's got a organic clothing company. You can find the links under my pages there as well. So I'm trying to do as much as I can. My horror, David, is leaving this planet and lying there dying in a baby's nappy, which most of us actually do end up doing, and just thinking I didn't try. You know, whatever the outcome of humanity, I didn't try. What can one guy do like me? I don't know. But if everyone puts their shoulders to the wheel and realizes that they are the midwives for a new whole world that needs to be born, then we can change a lot if we all do something. Start a podcast, write a book, you know, scream, you know, complain, you know. But most of all, try and create something different. It's no good just shaking your fist at the sky. You've got to try and put something else into place, you know. And that's what we're here to do. And if you feel that deep dissatisfaction within you, and even that hopelessness, remember, it's never hopeless, because it's the hopelessness that actually creates action to do something. So it's never hopeless.
I do thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of the conversation. Please leave comments in the description box below about what you liked, what we could talk more about, what we can expand on for our next topic and conversation as we meet again. Bye for now.